Hello and welcome everyone to the daily news analysis for today, 1st of August 2023। तो आज का जो 10 इम्पोर्टेंट न्यूज आर्टिकल हिंदू में से है, तो ये थोड़ा हम पहले देख लेते हैं कौन कौन से आर्टिकल इम्पोर्टेंट आर्टिकल्स आने वाले हैं। पहला जो आर्टिकल है, दिल्ली सर्विस बिल लाइकली टू बी टेबल्ड टुडे इन लोकसभा। दिल्ली की जो सर्विस बिल है आज लोकसभा में भी मतलब रखा जाएगा। नेक्स्ट जो आर्टिकल है चीप टैक्टिक्स ये एडिटोरियल का सेक्शन है। चीप टैक्टिक्स जो ये हमारा जो सेमीकंडक्टर का अभी कॉन्क्लेव गया हुआ था 2-3 दिन पहले, ये उसी के रिगार्डिंग है चीप टैक्टिक्स। नेक्स्ट है रिकैलिब्रेटिंग इंडियाज क्लीन कुकिंग स्ट्रैटेजी के बारे में ये वाला आर्टिकल है। नेक्स्ट इम्पोर्टेंट जो है तो डिबेट ऑन डाटा के ऊपर है। प्रिजर्विंग ट्राइबल कल्चर प्रिजर्व करने के बारे में ये वाला आर्टिकल है, पेज 7। नेक्स्ट द हाइब्रिड ईवी इम्पेरेटिव। अभी हर जगह ईवी का ही माहौल चल रहा है, तो ये हाइब्रिड ईवी इम्पेरेटिव के रिगार्डिंग ये वाला आर्टिकल है। At 8.2%, India's core growth touches 5-month high। 8.2% पे इंडिया कोर सेक्टर का ग्रोथ 5-month हाई में अभी जून के महीने में हो गया है। इसरो सक्सेसफुली पुट चंद्रयान 3 इन ट्रांसलूनर ऑर्बिट में सक्सेसफुली ये रख दिया गया है अभी चंद्रयान 3। नेक्स्ट है श्रीलंकन एनवॉय बैट्स फॉर लैंड कनेक्टिविटी श्रीलंका में, ये वाला 9th वाला आर्टिकल है, पेज नंबर 12 में। नेक्स्ट जो है गवर्नमेंट फ्लोट्स ड्राफ्ट नेशनल डीप टेक स्टार्टअप पॉलिसी। चलिए शुरू करते हैं वन बाय वन। Delhi Services Bill likely to be tabled today in Lok Sabha. Bill designates Lieutenant Governor as the authority who will have the final say on posting and transfer of bureaucrats in Delhi government. सर्विस बिल का मतलब है ये जो दिल्ली का जो लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर के हाथ में पूरा अथॉरिटी रहेगा ब्यूरोक्रेट्स को मतलब ट्रांसफर वगैरह करने के लिए। ब्यूरोक्रेट का जो है नेशनल कैपिटल सिविल सर्विस अथॉरिटी, ये चीफ मिनिस्टर, चीफ सेक्रेटरी, प्रिंसिपल सेक्रेटरी। नेक्स्ट जो है लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर एलजी के हाथ में। तो एनसीसीएसए वोट्स ऑन ट्रांसफर, पोस्टिंग, प्रोसिक्यूशन, सैंक्शंस, disciplinary proceedings, vigilance issues. Okay, IS bureaucrats from the center, principal home secretary. Then the chief minister can only vote. Lieutenant governor's decision will be final. तो बेसिकली ये वाला जो है ये तय ये करेगा कि लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर जो है वो जो है उनका डिसीजन फाइनली होगा डिस्प्यूट के टाइम पे। The bill to replace the Delhi Service Ordinance will be introduced in Lok Sabha on Tuesday. The Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Act 2023 seeks to designate the Lieutenant Governor (LG) as the authority with final say on the posting and transfer of all bureaucrats serving under the Delhi government. The draft bill, which mandates the creation of an authority for transfer and posting of senior officers in Delhi government, has been circulated among MPs. The bill deviates from main 19 ordinance on two aspects. First, it drops section 3A that said, notwithstanding anything anything contained in any judgment, order, or decree of any court. The Legislative Assembly shall have the power to make laws as per Article 239 AA. लेजिस्लेटिव जो एमएलए रहते हैं वो खाली लॉ बना सकेंगे, बाकी जो ट्रांसफर वगैरह का डिसीजन है वो एलजी के हाथ में ही रहेगा, एक्सेप्ट विथ रेस्पेक्ट टू एनी मैटर इनमरेटेड इन एंट्री 41 of list 2 of the 7th schedule of the Constitution of India or any matter connected therewith or incidental thereto. The second deviation is that it also empowers LG to appoint the heads of the boards or commissions that are enacted by Delhi Legislative Assembly. हेड जितने भी बोर्ड बनाए जाएंगे उनका जो हेड रहेंगे और कमीशन का जो हेड रहेंगे वो भी एलजी के द्वारा अपॉइंटेड होंगे. The ordinance promulgated on May 19 effectively negated the May 11 Supreme Court judgment that gave the Arvind Kejriwal-led Aam Aadmi Party government the power to make laws and wield control over bureaucrats deputed to Delhi government. सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जो जजमेंट आया हुआ था उसमें ये सारे जो ट्रांसफर वगैरह का इशू था, ये सारे चीजें जो है वो सरकार के पास में रहेगा, मतलब दिल्ली सरकार के पास में रहेगा. अरविंद केजरीवाल जी जो आम आदमी पार्टी के लीडर हैं, चीफ मिनिस्टर, उनका हाथ में रहेगा ये वाला पावर. बट अभी ये वाला जो गवर्नमेंट सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट लेके आ रहा है, इसके बदौलत मिल जाएगा सारे पावर जो मिल जाएगा वो लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर को मिल जाएगा. क्या क्या है वो जो ब्यूरोक्रेट्स का ट्रांसफर वगैरह, मतलब सिविल सर्वेंट का ट्रांसफर वगैरह का पावर उन्हें मिल जाएगा. और जितने सारे कमेटी बनेंगे, बोर्ड बनेंगे, दिल्ली गवर्नमेंट मतलब दिल्ली जो आपका यूनियन टेरिटरी का गवर्नमेंट है, उनके द्वारा जितने भी बोर्ड और कमीशन बनाए जाएंगे उनका हेड भी जो अपॉइंट किया जाएगा वो एलजी के द्वारा ही अपॉइंट किया जाएगा, अपॉइंटेड होगा. The objective of the bill was to give effect to the intent and purpose behind the provision of Article 239 AA of the Constitution. A permanent authority headed by the Chief Minister of Delhi along with his Chief Secretary and the Principal Secretary, Home, Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi. तो ये वाला जजमेंट जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने दिया था. बिल इलीगल एंड ऑन डेमोक्रेटिक सेज आम आदमी पार्टी. आप राज्यसभा MP Raghav Chadha on Monday termed the Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Amendment Bill 2023, which seeks to replace Delhi Services Ordinance, the epitome of undemocratic and illegal legislative action by BJP-led center. राघव चड्ढा जो हैं राज्यसभा के आपके लीडर हैं, तो इलीगल बता रहे हैं. मिस्टर चड्ढा said the bill, which is set to be tabled in Lok Sabha on Tuesday, was an outright assault on the people of Delhi, an affront to the judiciary, to the future of the country's federal system. He said the underlying message of the bill was that if people elected a non-BJP government, it would not be allowed to function smoothly, and the bill is a testing ground for such experiments. Mr. Chadha appealed to all MPs who hold constitution and democracy in high regard to unite against the bill and vote against it. तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जो जजमेंट आया था, सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जो जजमेंट आया था, उन्होंने क्या बोला था ना, ये सारे जो चीज़ें हैं वो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट के द्वारा, यानी यूनियन स्टेट गवर्नमेंट और ड्यूटी के जो गवर्नमेंट, मतलब इलेक्शन के द्वारा जो चुन के आए हुए हैं, उनके द्वारा निर्धारित किया जाएगा। सारा अथॉरिटी उनके पास ही रहेगा। पर सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने क्या किया, इसे सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने ऑर्डिनेंस और बिल के जरिए में इसे जो ये जो बिल था फिर दूसरे टाइप में डिवाइड कर दिया, मतलब डेबिट कर दिया। क्या किया ना, जितने सारे ये जरा सारा जो है, बेसिकली सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये बोला था खाली लैंड एंड पुलिस एलजी के द्वारा कंट्रोल में रहेगा। लैंड एंड पुलिस, लैंड एंड पुलिस एलजी के हाथ में रहेगा, और बाकी जितने सारे मैटर्स हैं वो स्टेट और यूटी के गवर्नमेंट, मतलब दिल्ली का जो आम आदमी पार्टी का गवर्नमेंट है उसके हाथ में रहेगा। लेकिन सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने इसे ऑर्डिनेंस के माध्यम, मतलब ये बिल के माध्यम में ये बोल रहा है कि अभी ये सारा पावर एलजी के हाथ में चला जाएगा। एलजी का डिसीजन फाइनल होगा। तो ये बिल अगर पास हो जाता है लोकसभा और राज्यसभा दोनों में, लोकसभा प्लस राज्यसभा दोनों हाउस में अगर ये बिल पास हो जाता है तो ये बिल में कन्वर्ट हो जाएगा, सॉरी एक्ट में कन्वर्ट हो जाएगा। चलिए नेक्स्ट आर्टिकल देखते हैं। चीप टैक्टिक्स। The piece to draw in semiconductor players must go beyond incentives. The government has made a fresh bid to attract major global chip manufacturers into the country at the Semicon India summit last Friday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi told prospective investors that the government had drawn on their suggestion after the Fast Search conference last year and taken proactive decisions to address areas of concern. Apart from low corporate tax rates and SOPs for all new manufacturing projects, he said the incentives offered to tech firms to set up production facilities under India's semiconductor program have been scaled up to 50% financial assistance. So essentially, the government would bear half of the typically large investment outlays that companies commit to undertake. Ahead of Mr. Modi's US state visit, the decks were cleared for $2.75 billion assembly, testing, marking, and packaging facility in Gujarat proposed by the US-based Micron Technology. The deal, perhaps nudged by the two countries' cooperation pact to build a semiconductor supply chain, has piqued investor interest and spurred Micron's supply to explore the option of co-located facilities, with several countries seeking to de-risk themselves from the dominance of China in the chip manufacturing supply chain through collaborative or friend-shoring arrangements. The rationale for the enhanced fees to investors is unquestionable, but the competition is already fierce. The $52 billion financing support announced by the US for semiconductor makers in 2021 has drawn over 200 billion $200 billion in commitments, owed by an array of subsidies. Intel alone has committed $80 billion in outlays across the European Union. In India, a 10 billion production-linked incentive scheme was unveiled for chip makers in late 2021. A $20 billion venture announced by Vedanta and Foxconn last year has, however, come undone. It is critical that the Micron investment is held till fruition to create an effective exemplar effect. Apart from incentives, investors also need to see evidence of a stable operating environment with a predictable policy framework that is not amenable to knee-jerk deviations such as export costs to cope with shortages. They would also compare India's trade linkage with world markets through bilateral and multilateral compacts and its approach to tariffs on myriad components myriad components that may need to be shipped in. The Prime Minister's assurance of understanding the needs of the global chip supply chain needs to be matched by action to assuage such concerns. There could still be many a slip between the leaf and the chip. Recalibrating India's clean cooking strategy. India's clean cooking strategy. Over last 50 years, the government of India has attempted to replicate the success that liquefied petroleum gas adoption has seen in urban households in proper rural adoption has been seen in urban households in proper and rural households. The Gramin in proper rural households, the Gramin Vitark Yojana, launched in 2009, has helped grow the rural distributor base from 18% to 60% of the total LPG distributor base today. The ambitious Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana (PMUY) has provided more than 9.5 crore new households with LPG connections since 2016. With near universal coverage of LPG, this is nothing short of an administrative and operational miracle. However, for the first time, LPG consumption in Indian households saw an absolute reduction of financial year 23 minus 0.5 versus financial year 22. After years of steady growth, the questions are how long must India consider just subsidizing LPG to improve adoption, and what are the other options that it can explore? The LPG story. In recent past, the share of Indian household using LPG as a primary cooking fuel had risen to 71% in 2020 from 33% in 2011. According to the Indian Residential Energy Consumption Survey conducted by Council of Energy, Environment and Water, it was a clear indication that Indian households wanted to adopt clean cooking solution and policy could overcome preferences and financial barriers. However, global events that unfolded since the COVID-19 pandemic and the ensuing loss of livelihood and income on the one hand, and the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the resulting surge and volatility in crude and product prices on the other, had dented even a near-term prospect of universal use of LPG in Indian household. In 2020, with the onset of COVID-19, subsidy for LPG consumption was withdrawn for all consumers. Then, in financial year 21, three free cylinders were provided to all PMUY consumers as part of the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. This drove the annual refill rates for LPG among PMUY consumers to their highest level of 4.55 cylinders per active connection, from 3 to 4 cylinders in other year. However, of the possible 24 crore free cylinders available for the taking, only 14.1 crore were actually consumed. Further, a nominal subsidy of 200 per cylinder was reinstated for PMUY consumers in September 2022, and it helped improve refill rates in financial year 23 4.09 versus financial year 22 3.68. Average refill rate for active non-PMUI consumers are in slow decline. 40% of PMUI consumers choose to get two or less refill in a year now. These outcomes suggest that despite significant efforts, home delivery and distribution channel issue remain, and more budgetary outlay will be needed for subsidies to entice the poor to consumer LPG and avail its health benefits. Another challenge is that India's dependence on imported LPG, the refined commodity, has steadily increased to over 64% in FY23 versus 46% in the pre-PMI phase. Further, Indian households have been a near doubling in LPG prices since May 2020 in nominal terms, with volatile international prices, especially since the Russian war against Ukraine, and a domestic budget that relies on petroleum and its products. Taxation significantly, it is unlikely that India can return to a regime where a subsidy of approximately INR 20,000 crore 2011 से लेकर 12 prices was provided each year for LPG consumption over the first 2 decades of the 21st century. Diversity in clean cooking. In order to resolve this impasse, India's clean cooking policy must effectively pivot towards the adoption of a suite of clean cooking technology and shift from an LPG only strategy. For example, electric cooking, including induction cooktops, can significantly offset the need for flame-based cooking. With near 100% access to electricity connection, rural households can also shift specific cooking needs to electricity. A CEEW study finds that even at a high tariff of 8 rupees for each unit of electricity, e-cooking would still be cheaper than cooking using LPG at today's price. Equally, there are legitimate concerns about the power distribution grid in rural India. ये बोल रहा है कि यूनिट 8 रुपये, मतलब इलेक्ट्रिक का यूनिट 8 रुपया पर यूनिट को अगर 8 रुपया भी हो जाता है, तब भी जो कुकिंग का प्रोसेस है वो एलपीजी से इलेक्ट्रिक कुकिंग में ज़्यादा चीपर रहेगा. As power needs to extend technology. In urban areas, nearly 10% households already use electrical appliances for their cooking needs, and they can seed the bigger transition that we want to realize in rural areas. One possible mechanism to nudge the shift to e-cooking could be through telescopically increasing LPG prices beyond a threshold. Say 7 cylinders that our average household consumes today. This could displace LPG in higher use groups and in turn create a demand for new e-cooking technology and models, and precipitate a bandwagon effect. Demand from these early adopters can then spur the domestic manufacturing ecosystem for e-cooking technology and stem this runaway dependence on imported LPG and crude, and the outflow of precious forex. This requires targeted support in the interim for manufacturers to embrace efficiency and design for the need of Indian households. How about a gas and electric hooked up in one device for start? Displacement of chulhas by e-cooking would also avoid climate pollutant release. With the newly launched carbon market, India can actually monetize these avoided emission and help finance the capital needed by the by poorer rural community to adopt e-cooking. The debate needs to move from LPG subsidy alone to financing and business models that value India's clean cooking transition for its climate and clean air benefits through a bucket of solutions. Next is the debate on data. The debate on data. Recently, there has been a spate of writing on India's statistical system and the data produced by it. The, ens- the ensuing debate has witnessed active participation from within and outside the government. While discussions on data and its veracity are welcome, the important point on the usefulness of available data to measure social and economic progress of a transforming economy looms large. The debate has also to be seen in the context of the increasing global prominence of economy and India's election to the highest statistical body of the United Nations for 4-year term. Economic and social data ideally is a public good. Its provision, like many other public goods, is the responsibility of the government. While there are numerous private data generating and publishing entities, they exclude data consumers through their pricing and restrictive access policies. Anticipating this, independent India planned for a well-designated statistical system and embarked on the journey of setting it up at both at the center and in the states. As noted by journalist Pramit Bhattacharya in a paper, India's statistical system was the envy of the world till the early 1970s. However, over time this saw a steady decline and has reached its present state, which is the subject of the current debate. Three issues. 3 points emerging from this debate warrant scrutiny. The first is quality and credibility of the data. Policy formulation, implementation, and research are not possible without accurate and credible data. Credibility is closely connected with the form of the data and the value of information and is dependent on reliability of the source. Accuracy is when data is a true representation of the expected value. The issue of the capturing data correctly is of paramount importance for a survey as they are the source for official rates of unemployment, poverty, and other statistics that guide policy. This data also aids economic research. Surveys, especially household surveys, are facing questions of credibility in terms of a sample selected representation of geographical regions, urban and rural strata, and on the issue of non-response by household given the structural challenges structural changes taking place in the economy. There can be an accurate portrayal of economy and society only through a realistic sample. Without this, biases creep in. A recent paper by the PAC-PM argues that surveys do not adequately capture the urban part of the economy. While this is a crucial issue, the data and definitions of urban itself need to be re-examined. Second, there are multiple agencies providing data on the same set of indicators for the same sectors, but giving different numbers. This poses the problem of choosing an appropriate data set to formulate policies. This is evident in the case of manufacturing data on this sector. For calculating GDP is from the Ministry of Corporate Affairs (MCA21) portal, but this data differs from the data published by the Annual Survey of Industries. Moreover, a 2019 report by the National Sample Survey Office on the services sector found that nearly 36% of the companies in the MCA21 system that were used in computing GDP were either not traceable or not classified properly as of June 2023. The MCA21 portal was plagued by technical glitches. There were problems in uploading, filling, and accessing documents. About 800 to 900 companies were being registered every day on new portal of MCA. However, there is concern about a large number of shell companies being formed which undermines the use of this data for GDP calculation. The competence and ability of the system to generate and disseminate high-quality data is the third use in recent times. Not only have surveys been delayed, but the publications of processed data of a completed survey has also been withheld. This has hampered the generation of micro-level data on important variables such as consumption used for accessing the extent of poverty. This is also the case with microeconomics data. The wholesale price series used to access inflation and the consumer price index are overdue for revision. To access economic growth, national income estimates need revision. Non-availability of updated data hinder the assessment of economic growth and poverty reduction. Urgent attention required. The non-availability of a credible, coherent data on economic and society is a problem that needs urgent attention. With the 2021 census yet to take place and with a review required for methods of surveys, data are not available for assessing economic performance and development outcome. In the absence of such data, policymakers look for quick fixes and celebrate success on the outcomes derived from thin samples. Recently, Niti Aayog's National Multidimensional Poverty Index 2023, which had used data from the National Family Health Survey (NFHI) 2019-21, showed a reduction in the multidimensional poverty since 2015-16. No doubt the NFHS has a robust methodology for collecting data for a specific purpose, but this particular index needs a caveat as it is based on a sample of 6 lakh households. While India has more than 30 crore households, it is time for an overhaul of the system. We need better communication between the creator and user of data. There should be an attempt to move beyond dashboard and disseminate data more transparently. Going back to the Rangarajan Committee report 2001 and tracking and taking stock of what has been done would be good starting point. urgent attention required, and the data debate on data. Preserving tribal culture. Odisha Special Development Council Odisha Special Development Council's model is worth emulating. The identity of tribal communities is rooted in their culture. Its uniqueness lies in the unbreakable bond between the community and the nature. As societies embrace modernized development, the richness, diversity, and depth of tribal culture tend to fade away. They tend to get shadowed by the homogeneously of globalized norms. While the central government has introduced several developmental projects for tribal people, it has a one-size-fits-all approach that divorces tribal development from tribal culture. Even in schemes such as the aspirational district program, the focus is exclusively on development-driven indicators. The cultural and societal context of those districts are sidelined in a significant move towards preserving, promoting, and popularizing tribal culture. While also continuing with the development process, the Odisha government launched the Special Development Council initiative in 2017. This is an active effort to preserve the culture and heritage of 62 tribes in the state umbrella under one umbrella while keeping economic development on course in the region. The scheme, which covered 9 tribal-dominated districts and 60 lakh tribal households in 117 blocks, has now been expanded to 23 districts covering more than 84 lakh tribal people. In this model, important culture markers that are a reflection of the tribal identity are identified and promoted. First, language is recognized as an important marker of culture, as Odisha is a land of over 22 diverse tribal languages. The focus is on the use and propagation of these languages. Over 21 tribal proficiency centers have been established. These have modules to educate frontline workers like ASA worker and non-Odia speakers about tribal culture and about tribal culture and dialect. Second, more than 4,500 sacred groups that were close to vanishing from the village landscape and are now being conserved. These groups hold immense cultural and conservational value for tribal population, as they are considered to be inhabited by the the tribal population, as they are considered to be inhabited by the god. Resource extraction in these groups is strictly prohibited. More than 4,730 sacred groups are under protection in 9 districts, and 1,609 tribal cultural clubs have been set up. Third, artisan ID card have issued to cover 40,000 tribal artisans. This initiative not only preserves culture but also enables employment opportunity. Fourth, to ensure an efficient transfer of knowledge, more than 50 tribal resource centers have been constructed in Sundargarh district. More are coming up in the remaining districts. The SDCs is a completely state-funded program. This helps the government factors in the cultural context, which is sorely missing in most central schemes. An amount of 387 crore has been budgeted and spent from 2017-18 to 2022-23 by the SDCS. Further, a total of 223.5 crore rupees has been budgeted for 23 SDCs for the year 2023-24 for 62 tribal groups, including 13 particularly vulnerable tribal groups. The, the projects are taken up by the Council Fund, which is given complete autonomy over the utilization of these funds. The SDC model also helped to preserve the culture and tradition of small tribal groups by giving them a role in decision-making processes. Thus, it takes care of intra-tribal majoritarianism. The councils not only have people from major tribes but also the PVTGs. The the boards are formed under the chairmanship of an eminent tribal person of the locality. The council consists of a chairperson, vice chairperson, where one among the two has to be a female. And members from various tribal groups nominated by the government. This makes the bodies truly representative of the community. The vision of inclusive growth and community-led development is not an idea but an actionable strategy for Odisha in its 5T: transparency, technology, teamwork, time limit, leading to transform driven technology model. This model of culture sensitive and culture inclusive tribal development is here to stay. It is about time that the central government also takes inspiration for its tribal sub-plans and district nodal plans from this model in other tribal dominated states such as Madhya Pradesh, Sikkim and in the northeast so that they can benefit from this. They can be benefited from this. So next article है the hybrid EV imperative. The hybrid EV imperative. A crucial element of world's transition to becoming net zero electric vehicle. Net zero electric vehicle in this net zero while their power net zero electric vehicles in this milieu, hybrid EVs present a big opportunity for economically developing countries. While their power generation and grid capacity and reliability, the fraction of renewable source in the power generation mix and availability of fast charging infrastructure are still less than ideal. Hybrid EVs offer a way to begin the transition instead of waiting. What is the net zero? What is net zero for a vehicle? Net zero for a vehicle includes emission at both the tailpipe of the vehicle and at the power plant. Making vehicle net zero requires cutting emission from both new and existing vehicle. Figure 1 shows the global scale of full EVs and plug-in hybrids EVs. ये वाला What are the different type of EV? Any vehicle propelled by an electric drivetrain taking electric power from a portable electrical energy source is called an electric vehicle. In a hybrid EV, an internal combustion engine is used to produce electricity with an electrical generator. A small battery, typically 1.1 to 5 kilowatt hour, is used in a hybrid EV as an energy buffer to store the electricity. The battery cannot be charged from the grid. A full EV, aka battery EV or a plug-in EV, has no ICE internal combustion engine and hence no tailpipe emission. The battery typically is much larger at 20 to 120 kilowatt hour, and it can only be charged from the grid. A plug-in hybrid EV is still a hybrid EV with a much larger battery, typically 5 to 15 kilowatt hour. This larger battery can also be charged from the grid. This means a plug-in hybrid operates like a fully electric vehicle as long as there is energy in the battery. A fuel cell EV uses a fuel cell to produce electricity for a drivetrain together with a small battery buffer to manage variations. What is the fuel economy of a hybrid and a fully electric vehicle? The use of an ICE in combustion with a generator and battery in a hybrid EV results in the fuel economy of these vehicles being 1 to 1.5 to 2x time higher than conventional ICE vehicle for city driving, and 1 to 1.5 5 times higher for highway driving. A plug-in hybrid EV combines the best of both hybrid and full EVs using small batteries that can be charged from the grid. It can cover 80 to 90% of all sorts of day-to-day commutes in a fully electric mode, within 3 to 4 times higher fuel economy than conventional vehicle. A driver on intercity trips can switch to the hybrid mode. What are the net emission of hybrid EVs? Apart from fuel economy, an important metric is the net emission of a vehicle well to wheel. Emissions include both tailpipe emission and emission due to fuel production, electricity or fossil fuels. The life cycle emission is a more comprehensive index that includes well-to-wheel emission and emissions due to vehicle and battery production, maintenance, and end-of-life recycling. The grid of different countries are decarbonized to different extents at present. In the case of full EVs, the lower the emission from the power production, the lower the vehicle's well-to-wheel and life cycle emissions. How do EVs life cycle emission compare to ICE vehicles? According to an analysis by the International Council on Clean Transportation of life cycle emissions of the various vehicles in the US, Europe, China, India, switching to full EVs will result in 19 to 34% lower emission by the sedan and 38 to 49% by SUVs. Even with the fossil fuel dominated energy mix in India by 2030, when renewables account for a greater share in grid, emissions are expected to be 30 to 56% lower. In all renewables grid. The gain. A full 79%. The same report also compared life cycle emission of hybrid EVs with that of conventional EVs in Europe and found 20 to 23% lower emission. What are the challenges to transitioning to electric mobility? First, a successful transition to full EVs requires fast charging infrastructure along highways. This is vital people generally want to own one affordable car serving both short and long distance travel. Needs to over 5 to 15 years and want to drive with a range of anxiety. The lack of a fast charging infrastructure will discourage people from buying full EVs. Fast charging means more power level of 50 to 350 kilowatt for cars and up to 1000 kilowatt for heavy duty vehicles. To compare, our smartphone charge at 10 to 25 watt fast charging will enable drivers to make long distance trips using their EVs with 10-20 minute stop to gain ranges of 300 to 400 km. The indicative prices for EV fast chargers are capital cost of 500 to 1000 per kilowatt dollar. For service and maintenance at 5% per year and an installation cost of around 50% of the charger cost. The high cost and wide variation are due to the high capacity power connection required, the cost of making and installing a new transformer and cable service level agreements, DC charger plugs option and quantities customization cost, labor cost and permits. Second, many Second, many parts of the world, especially economically developing nations, do not yet have access to grid or the grid is not 100% reliable. The relatively high charging power for slow charging and fast charging make the problem more prominent vis-a-vis generation and transmission capacity. This in turn could retard the transition to EVs. Third, mass market price points of cars in the world are economically developing world are much lower, $12,000, whereas EVs with a range of 300 to 400 kilometers will reach parity with conventional vehicle in the richest countries at a price of 25,000 to $35,000 in a short term. This is due to the high battery cost between 130 to $200 per kilowatt hour at the pack level. EVs with the higher range will need larger battery packs and thus be more expensive. हाइब्रिड मॉडल ऑफ ईवी, ये तीन इम्पोर्टेंट पॉइंट हैं. वन, टू, थ्री. हाउ कैन हाइब्रिड or plug-in hybrid EVs help us to decarbonize. The current focus in the industry is on full EVs, which is not practical for the immediate future given grid reliability, state of highways, charging infrastructure, and prohibitive vehicle cost. Hybrid EVs, either full or plug-in hybrids, present a big opportunity to lower emissions in the interim, that is from today, with the ICE vehicles until we have full EVs powered 100% by renewable energy. The 1.5 to 2 times higher fuel economy of hybrid and 3 to 4 times higher fuel economy of plug-in hybrids in electric mode drastically reduces fuel cost emission and oil imports. Plug-in hybrids in particular can match several of the benefits of full EVs vis-a-vis emission and performance without requiring large batteries with a limited all-electric ranges. This may not cater to all use cases such as taxis, regenerative braking in hybrid EVs, that is recovering the kinetic energy of the vehicle while slowing down instead of dissipating it as heat is the braking system can improve fuel economy ESP in urban areas with frequent stop-go condition and hilly condition. An engine start-stop mechanism can also save fuel and fuel at traffic junction and in heavy traffic. Finally, the purchase price of hybrid cars is only 5 to 15% higher than conventional vehicle and is independent of vehicle ranges. In an ideal future, all our electricity comes from renewable sources, and we power our EVs using solar energy during the day and with wind energy at night. For countries that can already work towards this goal, now our priority must be to realize this vision. In in places where transitioning to renewables for powers and building fast charging infrastructure will take a decade or more, we need to switch to hybrid EVs as a short-term solution due to fuel economy and emission benefits. तो जिस क्या है इलेक्ट्रिक हाइब्रिड इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल इज crucial element in the world's transition to net zero by combining the benefits of internal combustion engine with electric drivetrains. These vehicles offer an effective short-term solution to lower emission and fuel cost while paving the way for a more sustainable future. These vehicles offer a realistic approach for nation facing grid limitation and challenges in building fast charging infrastructures. So next at 8.2%, India's core sector growth touches 5-month high in June. Seven of the eight core sectors registered an uptick in the month. These constitute 40.3% of index of industrial production. India's core sector output surged 8.2% in June, the fastest pace of 5 months, buoyed by a 21.9% spike in steel output and nearly double-digit rate rise in coal and cement production. As per data released by the Commerce and Industry Ministry on Monday, seven of the eight core sectors, which constitute 40.3% of the index industrial production (IIP) इंडेक्स इंडस्ट्रियल प्रोडक्शन के द्वारा ये सब मतलब मेजर किया जाता है. तो जो मेजर किया था वो कितना हो रहा है उसका परसेंटेज 40.3%. Registered an uptick in June compared with just 6 in May. Economists said coming on the back of a 13.1% rise in output last June, the 8.2% growth in June was noteworthy. They expect the IIP growth, which had hit a 3-month high rate of 5.2% in May, to clock a 4.6% rise in June as well. Crude oil was the only sector in the red, marking the 30th successive month of contraction in output, although the extent of decline eased to 0.6%. Refinery production grew at a fastest pace in 9 months at 4.6%, while electricity up 3.3% and natural gas up 3.6%. Output growth touched their highest level of 4 and 5 months respectively. Coal production rose 9.8%, the fastest since March, while cement production rose 9.4%, the slowest in the 3 months. Fertilizer production rose 3.4%, the lowest pace in the least year. On a month-on-month basis, steel output was 1.15% higher in June, while cement production rose 1.7%. However, four sectors clocked a sequential decline from May levels: fertilizer, refinery products, coal, and crude oil. Core sectors' overall growth was broad-based and reflected the upturn in infrastructure spends, noted Bank of Baroda chief economist Subnabis, the government push in infrastructure, especially in roads, is reflected by the strong number for steel and cement. The cumulative growth in these two sectors has been in double digits in first quarter of this year, even though last year had seen a strong performance too. Creating a high base, Mr. Sabnabis said. ICRA chief economist Aditya Nair said the tardy onset of the monsoon contributed to an improved performance for sectors like electricity, coal, with the boost seen in mining and electricity from a drier than normal June. We expected the IIP growth to print at 4 to 6% in June. ये वाला जो जून का एक हुआ था ये फरवरी 8.2% जून 23 में. चलिए. ISRO successfully puts Chandrayaan-3 in translunar orbit. The Indian Space Research Organisation (ISRO) performed the translunar injection to slingshot Chandrayaan-3 towards the Moon early on Tuesday. The TLI was performed successfully from ISRO Telemetry Tracking and Command Network (ISTRAC) in Bengaluru. Chandrayaan-3 completes its orbits around the Earth and heads towards the Moon. A successful perigee firing performed at the ISTRAC. ISRO has injected the spacecraft into the translunar orbit. The space agency said the TLI was planned for August 1 between midnight and 1 am. Chandrayaan-3 is expected to reach the lunar orbit on August 5, and the spacecraft's liquid engine will be fired again to insert the spacecraft into the lunar orbit. The lunar orbit insertion (LOI) is planned for August 5. ISRO added after this there will be 4 orbit maneuvers to make the spacecraft enter into its final orbit at a distance of about 100 km from the Moon's surface. After this, there will be 4 orbit maneuvers to make a spacecraft enter into its final orbit at a distance of about 100 km from the Moon's surface. The Chandrayaan-3 consists of a lander module. Propulsion module, and a rover. The propulsion module and the lander module separation would happen on August 17. A series of de-boost maneuvers is also scheduled to take place before the power descent phase for soft landing on the Moon. The lander is expected to touch down on the Moon surface on August 23 at 5:47 pm. चंद्रयान-3 अभी ट्रांसलूनर ऑर्बिट में चला गया है. श्रीलंकन एनवॉय बैड फॉर लैंड कनेक्टिविटी. एंड नेक्स्ट जो आर्टिकल है गवर्नमेंट फ्लूट्स ड्राफ्ट नेशनल डीप टेक स्टार्टअप पॉलिसी. तो चलिए देख लेते हैं. हाई कमिश्नर मिलियांडा Muragoda says Sri Lanka hopes to benefit from India's economic growth as it seeks to come out of its current economic crisis. He said the resolution of Tamil's issues will eventually have to be found within Sri Lanka, and the conversation will continue. Airline connectivity is essential for the growth of ties between India and its neighboring islands, says the Sri Lankan envoy here, pitching for connectivity project resembling the Channel Tunnel from the UK to Europe as a possible future initiative. If environmental concerns are cleared, speaking about Sri Lankan President Ranil Vikrama, Vikramasinghe visit to India in July, when the two countries unveiled an economic partnership vision statement that includes maritime, air, energy, trade, people-to-people connectivity. High Commissioner Milinda Muraguda said Sri Lanka's hope of benefiting from India's economic growth and coming out of its current economic crisis hinged on being able to build causeways, bridges, pipelines, electricity transmission line and landing infrastructure to increase travel to and from India. Building any causeway or highway across the streets will require environmental impact assessment, and there is a process for that, Mr. Muraguda told The Hindu in an interview. If Sri Lanka is looking at this idea of a piggy backing on India's growth story, we have to have connectivity, he said. Land connectivity. 13th Amendment asked why concern expressed by India over implementation of 13th Amendment for devolution of power in Tamil majority areas were not, however, included in the joint statement made during the visit. The Sri Lankan envoy said President Wickremesinghe had discussed his latest protest with Prime Minister Narendra Modi proposal with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Prime Minister Modi expressed his view, and President expressed Sri Lanka's position so that conversation will continue, said Mr. Muraguda, pointing out that eventually the resolution of the Tamil issue would have to be found within Sri Lanka. The vision statement released after President Singh met Mr. Modi in Delhi on July 21 refers the plan for a feasibility study on land connectivity at an early date. Both leaders have decided to establish land connectivity between Sri Lanka and India for developing land access to the for developing land access to ports and Trincomalee and Colombo, propelling economic growth and prosperity in both Sri Lanka and India, and further consolidating millennia-old relationship between the two countries, it is said. However, the envoy declined to comment on whether this would involve using the Ram Setu or the Adams Bridge that connects Tamil Nadu to Mannar Island, which has been the focus of the protest by religious and environmental groups in anyway. Private investment. In addition, the envoy said that Sri Lanka does not have refining capabilities, and oil pipeline could help with the island's need, especially if connected to the oil tank farms in Trincomalee, which are also part of MOUs signed during President's visit. The project agreed during the visit most closely mirror a number of MOUs signed during President's previous visit in 2017, when he was Prime Minister under the then Sri Lankan President Maithripala Sirisena. Those MOUs, including plans for India to refurbish energy and port facilities in the eastern city of Trincomalee, eventually did not make headway and were delayed due to internal political turmoil in Sri Lanka. Asked about the timelines for the execution of the project agreed to during this visit, Mr. Muragada said the emphasis now is on encouraging private investment. When you talk of timeliness, sorry, timeliness of Initiative like in democracies, it's more complicated. One understanding between the two leaders is to try to encourage the private sector to be more engaged on both sides, which could be more time sensitive and successful, he said. He added that the purpose of Sri Lankan president's visit the first to India over in June 2022 was to chart the way forward for Sri Lanka's economic recovery as the economic vision statement had done and thank Mr. Modi and India for supporting to Sri Lanka during its debt crisis. तो लास्ट आर्टिकल है गवर्नमेंट फ्लोट्स ड्राफ्ट नेशनल डीप टेक स्टार्टअप पॉलिसी The official of the principal scientific advisor to the government put out a draft national deep tech startup policy for public comment on Monday, following two versions that were iterated at high level with other government departments, academia, and stakeholder firms. The policy seeks to ensure India's position in the global deep tech value chain in areas such as semiconductor, artificial intelligence, and space technology. The policy seeks to bolster research and development in deep tech startups which work on fundamental and technical problems, unlike firms that monetize technology with uh, distinguished business models, the draft says. The policy also seeks to find approaches to provide financing to deep tech startups at critical moments such as before they go to market with their products or ideas. The policies also seek to simplify the intellectual property regime for such startups, ease regulatory requirements, and proposes measures to promote these firms. For instance, the NDTSP suggests that an export promotion board be created to ease barriers of entry for Indian deep tech startups into foreign markets